biggest problems with our shoulder mobility is that we don't have any. The reason we don't have any is we tend to sit and stand like this. You're writing, you're texting, you're typing, you're just sitting there. What happens is you lose your thoracic mobility, your shoulder blades come and round out, so they don't have any stability anymore. Something has to take over and give stability, so it becomes your shoulder. Also on that note, when you're in here like this, it pulls your shoulder forward and locks it down. So posture is basically step one in fixing shoulder mobility issues and shoulder pain issues. Some of the major faults that we find in CrossFit, overhead movements. How many people have heard the cue push up on the bar? Active shoulders, right? I think when it was originally said that way, they meant active shoulders as in don't let them just kind of flop around. You want to keep tension in them. Where they kind of failed is it shouldn't be a lot of tension in the shoulders so much as in the shoulder blades. So I'll go ahead and grab a barbell really quick and show you what I mean. Alright, so you're doing an overhead movement and you push up on the bar. Does everybody see how my traps are nice and short and my scapula are just kind of like hanging out there? Basically, the bar can move however it wants to. One of the fixes for that is to pull your shoulder blades down. You activate your lats. You activate all of the muscles that hold your shoulder blades in place, and then the bar's not going anywhere. It's much more stable. So, we'll kind of get back to the fixing of that in a second. But that's the difference between pushing up and letting it fall back. Pushing up is going to give you shoulder pain, especially in the back here, because you're using all of your shoulder movers to hold that weight overhead. You don't want to let the weight drop. It's a protective mechanism. It's in your brain. It's in your second nature. Heavy weight overhead, I don't want it to get any closer to my head. So, you push up. But if we don't have that locked in joint at the scapulothoracic joint, then all of the muscles are what's going to be stabilizing. I like to use the example of power lifters. If you've ever seen somebody squatting 400 pounds or bench pressing a couple hundred pounds, they tend to arch their back like this. That's where that old heavy squat comes, where you're basically arched to the max like this and then you squat. The reason they do that is because that loads your facet joints in your vertebrae. Joint on joint or bone on bone is not going to fatigue. Muscles fatigue. The muscles around them will fatigue first. But when those joints lock into place, they're very stable. So that's kind of the idea that I want you to have when you're doing overhead movements and letting those scapula fall back into place. You are giving yourself stability because your scapulothoracic joint is a joint. It's not going to fatigue the way that your traps and your little bitty rotator cuff muscles are going to. So that's one of the biggest things that I've seen with CrossFitters. Gymnastics, this can be push-ups, this can be pull-ups, this can be ring dips, ring rows, muscle-ups, anything body weight or movement related. The big problem there is that your elbows are typically flared away from you. If you see people doing push-ups like this is not a very stable position for your shoulder. If you see people benching like this is not a real stable position for your shoulder. And anytime you're doing something on the rings or on the bar and your arms go away from you, once your gravity, or once your weight shifts, everything goes right here on the shoulder. That's a lot of weight for a mobile joint to support. When you pull your elbows in like that and use your lats, then it becomes almost like a scapula back and posterior arm exercise. You know, if you're doing something like a ring dip and you're in here, you get to use a lot bigger of muscles versus here. It also keeps your shoulder from going forward too much, which is a big problem. Ground lifts, same thing. So we'll go back to our barbell. Especially when we get really heavy weight, you know, you might set up here and be real nice and stiff and okay, I've got good stability there, and then you go to lift and your shoulder blades just round out, your back rounds out, your scapula have lost all stability, the bar is just hanging there by your shoulders. Not good. So, again, activating your lats locks your scapula into place, and you can't bend. The bar's not going anywhere. It stays close to your body, and you're using bigger muscles to hold that weight and lift that weight instead of these guys. Any questions thus far?